We're joined now by the Blackstone Group Special Advisor and also the former Treasury Secretary under George W. Bush, his administration, Paul O'Neill. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. I know you'll be with us throughout the whole hour. First off, what is the jobs market telling you about the economy here?
You know, I think the real economy is kind of clawing its way back up the slope. And I think unless there's some huge external shock, we'll keep doing that. It's not fast enough to make people really happy. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a pretty respectable number today for last month. And what I'm seeing, again, in the real economy are some encouraging signs. The fact that the U.S. auto sales in last month were at an annual rate of 13.4 million is almost 500,000 more than what most of the big auto companies were expecting for this year. And so I think we are seeing the signs in important sectors of our economy that we're growing back toward where we need to be.
So it sounds like you're in the camp that we are in the beginning of a pretty nice, perhaps slow but sustained recovery versus those economists we've talked about this week. We've talked to this week who said, look, this is the peak here. We're only going to go down from here. We've got inflation, pressures on the horizon. Oil prices are going up. We're headed into a recession, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's just absolutely wrong. I think we are, and have been now for a year or so, in a process of what I would call kind of natural healing of the economy, recovering from all of the things that came together to put us into a really terrible recession. But I think we're overcoming those things. We still have a long ways to go, I think, in the housing market with new home starts in the 500,000 range on an annual rate. We're at 1/3 of what we really should expect to be. And so when I'm seeing people complain about housing prices are still going down, I think it's actually a good thing because it's necessary to clear the market so that we can go back to building homes and new construction. And
have homes that are more affordable,
precisely,
at a time when we may be seeing interest rates eventually rise. If you were back in the administration, back as Treasury Secretary, how do you alleviate a concern like that is so wide-ranging, which is taxes and the energy policy? How do you alleviate that and to get them to put cash to work?
Well, in a way, I have to smile a little bit because as I think back over the last 40 years, there have not been very many times where we didn't have exactly the same set of concerns, and yet our economy has doubled, tripled, quadrupled since, say, 1970. And so, in a way, I think the uncertainties attendant to regulation and laws and the like are always there. My view is companies hire people where they have a clear indication of rising demand and an ability to earn a competitive rate of return on the capital you employ. And so while, for me, a lot of this stuff from an individual CEO's point of view is background music, and it's often unfortunate background music, but it didn't really much affect what I decided to do and how we moved at Alcoa when I was the chairman of Alcoa. I think it's good. It's not a surprise, I believe. The economy's been clawing its way back up the side of the mountain now for a better part of a year. And these numbers are consistent with that. I must say I'm really kind of amused by how much attention we pay to these monthly numbers, and would make this observation. If presidents could really create employment, there would never be any unemployment. And so attributing to presidents or White Houses movement in our economy, I think, is an overstep.
Right. Yes, that is true. However, certainly, no government, can control the economy 100%. But I would say that the White House has tried to at least, with their stimulus plans and whatnot, to try to get the economy moving. I mean, have they done enough? They've got this job council going now.
Right. As you can tell, I think it's fine. It's probably at least a positive, but I honestly don't think it makes very much difference. Employment comes from individual decisions all over the nation by people who have an ability to hire people, deciding that there's enough demand for them to be able to cover the cost of additional employees.
Right.
And the government can do all the chest thumping it wants to. At the end of the day, it's all those factors all over the country.
Okay.
And I think where we are is a process of natural healing of our economy.
I know the jobs report is what we're watching, but it was interesting when we let off from Bill Gross. He was talking about how Bernanke has to be, in his view, perhaps is less less watching. I guess not watching inflationary pressures as much as maybe he may be at PIMCO. What do you make of that? Where is Bernanke, or where is Treasury going wrong on this?
I think what Bernanke is doing makes a lot of sense, and I think there's no doubt he understands the need to be vigilant about inflationary pressures. My concern actually is not the immediate circumstances, but desperately wanting the administration and the Congress to attend to the issues related to our $65 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities. And, it's really fascinating to me after the president appointed Erskine Bowles and former Senator Simpson to develop ideas for him, and they came back with $4 trillion worth of ideas. And the president basically ignored his own report in his budget proposals. And so I've been going around saying, I wonder if non-leadership leadership can work. It's a really interesting experiment to see, without the president articulating a way forward, how we can do something that's really difficult. I think I believe we need for example, we need fundamental tax reform, and by that I mean considering ideas like eliminating the existing corporate tax and the existing personal income tax, and maybe even payroll taxes, and replacing the whole mess with some kind of a refundable value-added tax, so that we could meet the test of efficiency in our own tax system. Right now, it costs us arguably $200 billion a year to administer the tax, and we're under-collecting taxes that are supposed to be paid at the federal level by $400 billion a year. I've been saying now for 10 years, the current federal tax system proves that the Americans are not an intelligent people.
Let me ask you quickly, go back to your corporate days. This was a good report, not a great report. Average hours worked did not increase, and average hourly wages didn't increase. Productivity's been high. Are we in sort of a productivity trap where companies are just going to keep pushing, and we're not going to see the kind of jobs recovery we saw in the past?
Well, I'll tell you, from the places where I have inside information, and I know what's going on in some industries, I would say the companies across the country have done a fabulous job in responding to the depth of the recession and learning how to do things in a much more productive way, and I think that's good. And it's a platform that people are standing on now, and what I'm seeing in my own engagements is the demand levels are coming back up, and people are beginning to make new investments so that they can facilitate production that they didn't have available.
Right.
They're beginning to hire people back, not only here, but around the world. So I think we're moving up, and we're going to be on a better foundation going forward than where we were when we went into the recession. We're going to be tougher and better prepared to endure all kinds of things and still earn a competitive cost of capital, which is, at the end of the day, the way that you get real job formation and job creation and real growth in the economy.
Blackstone, I know you weren't involved in this deal, but I believe it was earlier this week they made this deal for Central, this mall operator. I think it was $9.4 billion, one of the biggest in the last few years for Blackstone. So to Sheila's point, are we going to see more deals like this in the retail sector? Is this a sign of consumer demand?
I think we're going to see more deals, not only in retail, but more broadly across all industry groups. It is true, and the collateral fact that as the credit markets have improved, it's possible to take some of the assets that private equity companies have been holding now for 3 or 4 years because they didn't really have a choice.
Right.
But there's an opportunity to put some of those things back into the public market, and that creates more spending power for private equity firms. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that private equity does when it does it best is find, discover undervalued assets and hold them for a period of time during a process of productivity improvement. and then put them back into the public market. And I think the wheels are starting to move again.
Yeah.
The other thing, Paul, is, as Sheila said, private equity firms can get financing.
Right.
What does it mean if private equity firms can get new loans from the banks, but consumers, the average consumer, can't get a loan? What does that mean for the U.S. economy?
Actually, I think it means people are chasing yields. All right, and so it's not getting so much money from banks as it is from people like myself who are interested in finding yields and being willing to put their money into the hands of Blackstone and other private equity firms with an anticipation that we're going to get a better yield than we can get, God knows, from money market funds and a whole lot of other things that are kind of crawling along the bottom.
And to your point, with the IPO market, it seems starting to move again. Perhaps you'll start to see more of these private equity deals, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for staying with us.